I think TITANX Hub has been the
TITANX Hub has been the bedrock and the anchor of the entire ecosystem, and has done really a great job at enforcing the ethos. I think last week there was a question why one protocol wasn't listed, and I think Frosty raised that. I wasn't quite clear. I wasn't part of the discussions, and I did refer you to Mike, and I believe you reached out to him. We had further discussion, and I shared with you the ethos.
It has been one of the most discussed topics.
It has been one of the most discussed topics since the inception of TITANX. But the era of rug pulling and stealing people's funds would become a very high cost behavior in the, I'll say, short to medium term, with the legislations that you have coming from places like the US. In the meantime, whilst the regulators and lawmakers are catching up, we need to carry on and ensuring that our decentralized space provides a safe environment for those who want to learn about DeFi and participate. There are no promises here that there would not be a rug pull, even though we've not had a rug pull yet in the whole, I think, 21 months of operation. TITANX has not had a single rug pull, and that is not by accident. But then, having said that, it is everyone's responsibility to make sure that you know where you're putting your money, that you do your own due diligence, you complement the effort of the community to keep the TITANX space clean. And so, great. Again, on that note, let me go through very quickly what the ethos, our existing ethos, what it says. And again, for those who are not aware, TITANX is a layer 1 within a layer 1. And currently we've got over 40 projects built on TITANX, including stable coins, or ranging from stable coins to, of course, your lending, borrowing, protocols, to staking, GameFi, and so on. We've got, meme coins as well. So if you're new, it is definitely a very active ecosystem. Particularly now that we're becoming more, now that we're expecting a bull market, I think it definitely is a good time if one is new to study or to come over, in these sort of forums and ask questions. Just feel free, ask questions, and we will answer and direct you to sources that would help you. In any case, yes, I've got the TITANX principles and ethos right in front of me, and I'll go through very quickly in summary form. So I have here the TITANX ecosystem is a decentralized and transparent community-built environment with a focus on promoting a fair and ethical crypto culture. Now, again, I think that's self-explanatory. This is really a community-built environment. It's decentralized, and we really enforce the values of being transparent. And that's why, if you've been part of the discussions over time, builders normally will come in and have discussions with us here, the community. And so questions such as the safety around liquidity proofs, are they locked? Does anybody have access to the keys? Or has these are the sort of discussions that I had in a very transparent way. And so the sort of behavior, and I'm sorry I have to go back to it, where you've had so-called founders rug pulling and stealing people's funds, simply taking entire liquidity and exiting. That's not something that we've had here. And unfortunately, the sort of behavior that really it gets to me, I must say. And it is a case of you have these guys who would raise 10 million, 20, 30, 50 million from the community. They'll hardly present a protocol of any note. They will then tell you to do the marketing as the community and provide the liquidity yourselves, and then proceed to steal the liquidity that you've now provided. On different levels, there's no way this can be acceptable. And I'm hoping that I'm going to push this a bit too far, but I think when some life sentences or very long sentences are imposed on perpetrators going forward, and particularly with the US having the territorial reach, I think that would help curtail that behavior. But in the meantime, again, we have got work to do, and we've got a massive bull market around the corner. And be rest assured, the same scammers that are kind of hiding in the woodwork will crawl out and come up with their usual nonsense. So it's good that we are keeping ourselves reminded. And if you find in the next 2-3 months someone with a bright idea comes over here and simply wants to buck the trend or, shortcut our ethos, and you see that there's pushback, I hope that, one, that we will recognize why. But in any case, the TITANX Fair Crypto principles and ethos starts with no pre-sale, so including your ICOs, your IDOs, IEOs, or whatever you call it, sacrifices. You're not raising money from this community ahead of time without delivering anything. Anybody who's coming here to build would do it the right way. We've got 40 protocols minimum. Our builders are among the best in the market, and they have done it the right way. They've built, they have a working protocol, they launch that protocol, and there's a fee attached to the usage of that protocol. So the success of that protocol, they're tied. Our builders are tied to the success of their protocols, and you can't get it any better anywhere within the the current crypto ecosystem. On the scale that TITANX is practicing this fair crypto principles. You can't find that anywhere else, and that is something. Let me give you a quick example again that's been shared here before we move on. You have Ouroboros, which is a lending and borrowing stable coin protocol. You will struggle to find the complexity and yet the simplicity that this protocol builds. You'll struggle to find it anywhere within the crypto industry. It came with, real innovation. Innovation is something that you also struggle to find within the entire ecosystem. All you get most times is copies of copies of copies, and yet they would collect 10 million, 20 million, 30, 50 million of your money. You go in, and Mike can attest to this. I have done this when I was looking at projects much earlier on, before builders who I believe are much more intelligent than I am and have more experience. And when you have that quality of builders, there was no need for me to go in to build when the builders have responded to the call. And what it showed is that actually, if you provide the right ethical environment, there are builders that want to do things the right way. And that's why we must support our builders. And so, going back to Ouroboros, it is a multi-collateral, multi-chain borrow lending stablecoin protocol. I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but I just want to say this. If you look at PulseChain, there is a lending protocol that raised about 50 million USD. They hardly delivered on the protocol itself. And this particular protocol founders asked their community to go and market the protocol and provide liquidity. And so the question, it begs the question, then what did you use 50 million for? I know for sure, and Mike can attest to this, I have quotes on building a lending borrowing protocol with just one asset as your collateral asset. In no way does that even go up to 100,000 USD. I mean, with all the bells and whistles. And I'm not talking about the Fiverr developers that you can get, that a lot of these guys use. I'm talking about established, at least we had about 3 or so of these developers who I shortlisted and got quotes from. And so you tell me what someone needed 50 million to do to build a one asset collateral lend borrow protocol, and on top of that imposes the responsibility of marketing and provision of liquidity on their community. Now, this is why I say to you that until we get these long sentences or life sentences imposed in this space, which I strongly believe will follow if this sort of behavior continues, particularly with the disclosure requirements that is definitely now coming on board. You can't hide behind whatever excuse, it's a sacrifice or any of that nonsense for the kind of obvious unethical and criminal behavior that we have here. So this is what TITANX offers, and the equity of TITANX is really in this intangible. And that is secured by its so the value of TITANX, the equity of it, which you really can't put a price to, is in being able to push this sort of behavior and culture within the crypto space, generally. So that's good. So no pre-sale, and we don't want that here. Deliver a finished product or protocol with a transparent fee structure. Community will support you. 2, token distribution methods strongly recommended. It's got to be transparent. No pre-allocation of tokens. Auctions, mining, yes. Again, it's got to be transparent. Security audits, 2-3 preferred prior to launch. That's 2 to 3 security audits are preferred prior to launch. Full disclosure on vulnerabilities and risks. Ensure there is no access to crypto customer funds through admin keys, backdoors, or any other method. We talked about that earlier. And you give the community sufficient and reasonable time to review the audit. Okay, so now in terms of doxing, that's definitely a question that has been raised. Of course, doxing is something that is encouraged. But if there isn't, if the founder is not doxed, that's not a deal breaker. If you satisfy all that we've covered, and the founder is known within the community, active, and is known, then that's definitely one that is acceptable. And we have that here again. Ouroboros founder, who's been one of our most active founders, if not the most active, here is, quite frankly, yes, he's not doxed, but you see what he has delivered. And you see, he is probably, he definitely is among a number of all our other founders who have been here for quite a long time, have upheld this behavior in a very admirable way. Okay, we move on. Input, burn, stake, and liquid pair. What does that mean? What token do you enter into the ecosystem with? That's pretty much what that means. Your input token in TITANX ecosystem, if you're going to be a TITANX protocol or build on TITANX protocol, has to pair. So your token has to pair with TITANX or a build on TITANX token. And so that is something that is very important, and for us as a community, that is a question that we really do need to ask ourselves here. Is okay? Is the token paired with TITANX or built on TITANX? Token. If yes, you treat it as the protocol as a missionary protocol, as in a contributor to the ecosystem. If no, you treat it as a mercenary protocol, a community drainer. And you gotta ask again: is the protocol going to burn, stake, or lock TITANX? If yes, missionary. If no, then it's a mercenary protocol. It really is that simple. So when it comes to input token, you want to know how the new protocol, how is it being paired? How is the token of the new protocol being paired? And when it comes to staking, pretty much, you have to, and of course, yes, stake and burn, and so you want to know whether this is contributing to achieving the overall objective of making TITANX a hyperdeflationary token. And I'm not going to go into the reason why we need, I think that's self-explanatory, actually, why you would need a token to be hyperdeflationary as you grow the network. And that's what our 40 odd or so protocols have done in different degrees, managed to help push TITANX, the underlying protocol and token, into the hyperdeflationary environment. Let me just issue a disclaimer: this is not financial advice. Again, I think please note that participation in the TITANX ecosystem involves risk, and loss of funds may occur. Okay, good. Let me pause there. Cryptographics. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, hey, everybody. First of all,
yes, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Good to see everyone here. Love. I wish I could have chimed in without cutting you off, because you had a mic drop moment there after your perfectly stated, state or how do I even put that? Just how you stated the difference between ICOs and what it costs to raise, and how people get screwed over, and why we have TITANX ethos or TITANX community, and why we have fair launch. So I mean, that was beautifully said. I mean, I wish someone could clip that and put that somewhere, because that's exactly what people need to hear is that kind of passion of how important the ecosystem is. And I also want to put out, maybe, I don't know, this might be controversial, this might not be, but I want to put out a feeler to the idea that some of the ethos that we have in terms of liquidity specifically, because I have been thinking a lot about, how do we make this ecosystem as sustainable as possible? And the idea of liquidity stacked on TITANX is a beautiful thing. And if we look, though, at the context of what that means, well, right now we don't have a ton of liquidity on TITANX. That's fine. But what does low liquidity mean? Higher volatility, right? So what I want to propose as like an idea, and I would love to hear people's thoughts and just kind of start this conversation, is this idea of, what if we had, like, near the bottoms, liquidity is paired specifically with TITANX, as a builder strategy. So when we think that we are, near the bottom, at the bottom, blah, 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 utilizing farms or liquidity or whatever incentives that would be for liquidity providers, that we are utilizing, incentivizing highly the TITANX wrapped ETH pool. But the thing about this is, there's another take here that I think is important, and the higher you go in price, the thicker the liquidity, but you can go up as quickly as you go down if you're only really incentivizing the main pair. So I think it's important to understand that if we are to potentially incentivize the pools and the stacking at the bottom, and have the a different case at the top, where now we're actually allowing other protocols or other liquidity pools to be formed at the top to bring in, like, USDC, DAI, more wrapped ETH. What happens is you are allowing the price to be more stable. More liquidity at the top means more stability, and the price will not fall as quickly. So I think there's an interesting case for context-dependent liquidity, and there's a lot here. I mean, like if you go over to the PulseChain ecosystem, you can see this is what's being set up over there. And I called this out months and months ago. I said this is what he could do. He could pull the liquidity, get it set up for volatility, and then get the farms out again at the top. And I think this is something that we can do as well, and would be incredibly powerful. And what would happen is it would make it so that we could go much higher in price and then stay much higher as a floor. And I think this is a really important concept to consider, because it has so many advantages on all fronts. So I don't know if I need to say anything more on that front, but I'll put that out there and see if anyone else on the panel has any thoughts about that, because the more I think about it, man, I think that would be one of the most important things we could possibly do at the top, is make liquidity as large as possible. Maybe Bitcoin Genie is perfect near the top. I don't know, like protocols like that where the liquidity is spread nice and wide and we have way more. It just gives so much more strength and depth to the ecosystem at that point when it needs it most. So I'll pause there, but I'll be curious what everyone else thinks, if anyone has any counters to it as well. And hopefully, if Jake is listening, maybe I'll trigger him to come up and duke it out with me on this, because I think this is an interesting one.
Great. Thanks, Cryptographics, for that contribution. Fact is, the ethos is not a Bible. It definitely needs to be evolved and improved. And so, of course, if there are innovative ideas, it will be discussed, definitely. And so your idea of I think you called it context dependent liquidity, where you set up liquidity for volatility. Yeah, that's sort of your description of it. I won't pretend to understand that I understand it completely. I think I'll need you to flesh it out a bit more for me definitely to understand it. But just to say, ideas that contribute to the ecosystem, that improve upon the ethos, is definitely something that I would say that the community should welcome. And of course, net if it's a significant, net if it's a contributor to the ecosystem, rather than being a drainer, on the ecosystem, why not?
So does anybody else have anything to add to that?
So does anybody else have anything to add to that? To the idea cryptographic shared?
Okay. Well, I think we still have
Okay. Well, I think we still have an opportunity to discuss that. I'll just finish up on the points that I have. Again, so we've discussed the current ethos as it is. Now, I received comments from a community member who, if he wants to come up and discuss it, please feel free. But I definitely would want to share that here openly. So, got some comments on, private groups within our ecosystem, and of course, general suggestions on improving the ethos. Now, let me first of all deal with general suggestions on improving the ethos, and these are pretty much high level. I guess there'll be a bit more discussion again to flesh these out and see whether they will help in improving the ethos. But the question raised here was: are ETH pools acceptable if not the primary pair to resolve routing issues? Now, I'm reading these verbatim. So this is a question that was asked: whether ETH pools are acceptable if not the primary pair to resolve routing issues. Now, Americans will call it routing issues. I think in the UK we'll call it routing.
By the way, the Australians will not call it routing. Just to say that.
And I don't want to start anything. With the Aussies, huh? Okay, so we'll see. The next question is: should they also burn TITANX or just the BOT token. Then another question is, should BOT protocols pair only with TITANX? And I think I've addressed that earlier. I mean, it doesn't have to be just with TITANX. It could be with a BOT protocol. So you're either pairing with TITANX or a BOT protocol as a builder. Now, comments that I completely agree with, that this observant community member raised, no insider trading. That's definitely something that we don't accept within the TITANX ecosystem. But he's gone on to say, which I think is definitely valuable, replace private group language with a clear no insider trading principle, acknowledge enforcement limits, focus on preventative structure. Now, if someone has set up a private group, I will suggest that should not be seen as something that the community is doing. And I think that's why it's good to have this sort of, for record purposes, it is on them. If someone is set up a private group where it's given a look of insider trading, I think we will definitely scream from the rooftop that, listen, this is not TITANX. This is not TITANX ethos or principle. We want things transparent. That we can't have this look of, certain members of the community having, an advantage over others. That's definitely the practice we want to move away from. Okay, and I think there is definitely a reason why this was raised, and that is because there is a private group that one of our founders founded, and he's using that to share information generally. But his project, I must make that very clear, this is Dragon X. This is, for those who know Eric, just being transparent about it. Yeah, Eric is one of the major founders, and his protocol is Dragon X. Now, if you look at that, right again, no access to liquidity, so it ticks all the boxes with respect to TITANX. So we're not talking about pre-launch. I think this is an issue that has now arisen that pretty much was not catered for in the ethos, and this is post-launch. How do our builders, or how should our builders behave? And I think that's a very important point to raise. We shouldn't make it look that there is asymmetry of information or putting certain sub community above others, and one can give that impression without intending for that to be the outcome. And I think it's something that we all should be aware of. And yes, rather than use a sort of private group, I think we probably could look at a different way of expressing that. He goes on to say anti-insider protection, published launch book time enforced on chain, release full mechanics. Of course, this is pre-launch. Right? That's something we definitely do. Founders can educate privately only if all info is made public. That's true. It's important that if one is setting up a private group, to make it very clear to the community, this is what it's open to all, this is what my private group is doing, it's an educational group, we share this is where we share XYZ. But I think transparency is definitely something that is important, particularly if you're using the word dividends. If you're using the word that these sort of words are very sensitive and they shouldn't be used within this ecosystem. There are no dividends that are being paid here. If you want to pay dividends, then you follow the rules. You know what the rules are. And so, I think it's very clear to say that terms such as sacrifice and so on haven't really been tested legally. If you are raising public funds, if you're raising funds from the public, be rest assured that there are certain rules that you need to follow. And so, if you're saying that on the basis of those funds, that you're then creating an investment vehicle from which you would make payments such as dividends, that is not TITANX. And this is a matter of record. These spaces are recorded, and it's so whoever is promising dividends, I would think that is the wrong word, but one has to be careful about that. there are no dividends paid. And if you start using that word, people will start asking questions. Okay, where are you getting the money from? How are you raising these dividends? Because we know within this ecosystem, things are transparent, no pre-allocation of tokens, and so on. So how exactly are you paying these dividends? You're just begging for it. So I'm not going to overflog that. Just moving on. And open to change. Ethos should allow changes, but only if proposed publicly in advance. Now, I think I've covered that. And with respect to cryptographics question, if evolution, innovation in the right direction should be encouraged. And he's going on to say high transparency for high-risk projects. Riskier or experimental launches must be clearly telegraphed, and that is exactly what has occurred within our ecosystem. Now, let me just now. I think I've also touched upon the whole thing about this private groups, but there's a little bit more here, where, of course, our contributor is saying that. To be clear upfront, private groups are not inherently unethical. Many of us are in them, and he goes on to say that they are a normal part of DeFi and TradFi. That's true. I said, but problems begin to arise when these groups blur into protocol territory in a way that creates asymmetric access to information, insider enrichment opportunities, loss of trust among public contributors. I'll not use the word investors. Here's it goes on to, of course, to clarifying concerns around, here's a working draft on what we might define as boundaries, clarifying the concerns around private groups, and so on. Okay, folks, I want to stop there. I think we do get the idea, and that's one thing that we have promoted here from the beginning. It's that we will be transparent with the community. We don't have these discussions, every week, as in we don't have discussions on the ethos every week. If you look at over the last 80 episodes, so it'll be 80 weeks that we've had the build on TITANX, these build on TITANX spaces, we've had a handful focus on ethos. Approaching the parabolic bull run, I think it's timely to touch on these matters once more, and I hope that we all take it in the spirit that it is meant. And on that note, yes, we're approaching almost the 1 hour mark. I will really, the floor is open. If anybody has anything to say on the ethos, issue, if you have any improvements that you want to suggest, either now or in the future, feel free to do so. This is a very open environment. Nobody's getting banned or access restricted from here because of a contribution that they made. And by the way, for transparency purposes, we have a community member, Chiz, who has in the past raised similar concerns here. He isn't the one who's raised the matters that I've just gone through here. So just to make sure that that's clear, I find it very helpful when we keep these things above board. But anyway, folks, I think I've been talking for quite a while now. I definitely will like suggestions, and I'd like to, let's keep this conversation going.
Well, if I can just chime in for a second, I think, with the whole private group thing, I can completely understand the need to have transparency, to not have like asymmetry in terms of private opportunities versus public opportunities. And simultaneously, I also think it's important to really get the full picture and even talk to Eric in this case and have him present for these kind of conversations, because and in no way, shape, or form am I saying that this conversation is entering where I'm about to say, but I think it's really easily for a conversation like this to start maybe spiraling because all the facts aren't known. And I think it's really important that for this conversation to have some sort of resolution, all the facts need to be known. Eric should come out and speak on it. I mean, he's released so much information, like of any private group. I gotta give him due credit. Like that's one of the things he's done amazingly well about it. So, of course, not advocating or not advocating, just saying, like, he's already been very transparent about all, like, as much as I can see about it. And I think it's important to have him be a part of the conversation going forward. Just make sure there's no confusion and, hard feelings that, are potentially unwarranted or unnecessary just due to, factual errors.
I agree completely. Cryptographics. It definitely is. One. I mean, you made a point. Eric definitely. I will send him an invite to come up, and this is always open. If it's we come here every week and we ask for the community to raise, any comments, any questions, any concerns, bring it and let's discuss. And I think we've got to mean it. And so, in as much as I would want, I probably would want to adopt the conflict avoidance, approach. The fact is, these are questions that have been lingering and that need to be addressed. And it's unfortunate that we're combining the private groups matter with the ethos, which is completely, we could demarcate these two.